I'm Alya Hatta and I'm a painter and we're in ASC Studios, Brixton. I make work about my East-West diaspora living between Malaysia and London. I primarily work with textiles and paints to create kind of a collage of memories and experiences that I have gone through in London and in Kuala Lumpur, where I live. Yeah, I like to make new worlds, new scenes, combining different memories, histories, and things between the East and the West, and make them into like a new scene or a new world in each painting or sculpture. I'm really interested in ecology because plants are something that I always had around me growing up. The first process of making my work is collecting the resources of which I want to make the painting about. Recently I've been going out to the parks around where I live to collect leaves to be able to block print them. And I also go to the British Museum archives to collect historical images and artifacts from different areas in Malaysia and in London to kind of use within my work. I also take a bunch of pictures from photo albums in my mom's house, in my grandma's house, my family home, and stitch these individual moments into single moments that I can use to inform a painting. I would say that the majority of the construction of my work is experimental because most of my materials are found objects or donated or collected from businesses like around me that don't need these materials anymore. I can't really plan what anything is going to look like. I can only really work with what I receive. I'm always trying to figure out new ways to make things work because a lot of the times like the materials that I do get are very challenging, and so I always need to experiment to make it work in the painting the way that I want. The older I get, the more that I see the world go into decline. Sustainability has become a really important part of my practice. Even though my work takes a lot of experimentation, I'm quite meticulous in the way that I set things up, or else I would go crazy. So before I even do anything physical with an artwork, I will spend if I'm working towards a solo show, which I am right now, I spent 1.5 months planning everything the exhibition was going to be about, all the resources that I need to collect from which local businesses, how I was going to get other resources, funding, whatnot. Before I reach the stage of making, I have a general idea of what ideas need to be on which painting and what ideas need to be in the sculpture. And so despite the process of making actually being very experimental, there's a solid framework that I've set out for myself months ago to be able to focus and work on. And I collect all my materials before I even start making, and that just gives me so much more of a clear mind when I come to the studio, because I work with such an array of materials from everywhere. I feel in order for me to do the best at actually physically making, I need to be focused and not think about where the next thing is coming from, or where the next material or bike parts are coming from. Yeah, the paintings and sculptures are all a collage of my life, because they've been physically created out of people around me back home and in London. Things, leaves, fabrics, materials that I gather, and they're also a collage of things that have happened or just experiences that I've had in general around the East and the West and whatnot. And so they're just a physical representation of my life, and sometimes history, and sometimes myth as well. Just whatever I feel inspires me or informs me on a day-to-day basis. I don't have too many different colors in my studio, so a lot of the colors that I use are mixed with basic primary colors or basic browns and oranges. I'm also really informed by within the fabrics, just by the color itself or texture or pattern. A lot of the point of the work is where I get these things from and who I get these things from, and my relationship to the people that gives me all these things. So because that already provides a solid baseline for why I'm using the materials, the next thing I do to decide is primarily based on color and texture and nothing more than that. One of the most important things about becoming an artist is focusing on making work that is authentic to you and thoughtful, and just being able to become an expert at your own field. I think in art school And we had like great tutors, but unfortunately I was like in school during the time of like COVID. The most valuable thing I gained was like the network of friends, and of course like going to RCA, being around so many painters. Like the most valuable thing was definitely learning off of the other students and like the peers around me, just from things like stretching a canvas properly to like learning what colors to use, or like learning like new techniques. I think it was so informative to be around so many different techniques and processes. Just being able to have so much time to myself in a studio space, that was like a base to come to like every day to paint. I think that was really useful.